comments in the chat box, can you help me just to kind of interject and let me know if people have got any questions and so forth, okay?
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Brilliant. Okay. So I'm just going to share my screen, see if that's going to work. All right. Can you all see that at all?
Not yet.
How about now?
Yeah, we can see it.
Okay, brilliant. So I've lost you all as well. So let's just have a look and see if okay, so Rachel, thank you very much for that kind introduction. As Rachel mentioned, my name is Lorraine Mahachi. I'm a registered nurse. I'm also a registered specialist practitioner in adult nursing, and I'm also a professional wellbeing advocate. So when Rachel approached me talking about wellbeing, I started to think, okay, I've got 45 minutes. So I usually can teach a whole module on this, but what could I pull together that can kind of get us all talking about well-being? And the topic that came into mind was your inner self. Starting within what's within and kind of knowing and learning a bit more of what's within. Okay, and what I'm going to explore today with you is a lot more around how the brain works. Okay, so I've been a nurse for about 21 years now, and it's not until I started delving into more about how well-being is and how the brain works, that's when I started to kind of understand fully how we could probably function as a human being. Okay, together with everything that's around us, environmental factors, your spiritual self, your religious self, it's important to kind of pull all of that together. Okay. Right, this is where it's all going to go wrong. Let's have a look. So, like I've already mentioned, I'm a registered nurse and a specialist practitioner in adult nursing, and I worked in the NHS until recently, just moved into the private sector. I had spent 21 years in the NHS. I did some work, university level and master's level on professional nurse advocacy. So the focus was a lot around nurses and how we could promote well-being in nursing, but this is transferable to all other professions. Okay. Bear with me. Okay. So I also did a module on intelligent behavioral analytics, looking at well-being human behaviors, how people behave in organizations or as individuals. I've been in a leadership position for 15 years, and through that journey, I started to explore more how I could facilitate and I could engage myself and my colleagues into our desired goal. And I realized how tricky that was. Which is why I started exploring a bit more about understanding human behavior. So I'm originally from Zimbabwe, and I've always been passionate about education and kind of social and community awareness. And I've done a lot of community work from the age of 5. I also worked in theatre and radio, promoting various social topics. I'm also a founder and managing director of Chennai Heart and Mind Limited, which I started with my passion towards well-being and inclusion and diversity. So you now know a little bit about me. There's quite a few of us, so we won't have enough time for everybody to introduce themselves. But I was just hoping I could engage you in a little exercise, and I'm going to use a Slido. For those that have used it before, you're probably familiar, but for those that haven't, if I could just ask you to use this QR code. So if you've got a mobile phone, you can hover over this QR code and it will take you directly to this questionnaire. If you haven't got a phone or you're on another device, you could type in slido.com and you put in that number there, 3234624. And if you could just answer this question for me, what is your profession? That would be really helpful for me to understand who I'm conversing with today. Sorry, just bear with me. There we go. If you could, Rachel, if you could kindly just monitor that chat box if people are struggling, because I can't see it.
I'll do that, Lorraine. Thanks.
Fantastic. Thank you very much. Usually I'm able to share the screen with the answers, but just bear with me. Let me see if I'm able to do that. Okay, all right, brilliant. So I got a student nurse, a healthcare assistant, and a student nurse. Yeah, registered nurse and a trainee midwife. So quite a lot in healthcare, right? Brilliant. I've got 3 people. Are we all managing to log on? We've got a pastor. Brilliant. For anyone else who's struggling, you could probably type it in the chat as well. So majority of us here are in healthcare. So we've got 2 pastors and healthcare. So I can see 27 people on this session, but I've only got 6 people participating. Are we struggling a little bit with the Slido?
Yeah, there's some in the chat box and more is coming up.
Okay, right, we got a pharmacy dispenser, we got professor. All right, Rachel, what do we have in the chat box?
We've got a registered nurse from the chat box.
Okay. Brilliant. Thank you very much for that. And my apologies if you're struggling a little bit. I do have some more Slido coming up in this session. So if you do, want to kind of try and get onto that QR code, that would be brilliant. If not to worry, we can always use the chat box. Okay. So thank you very much for that participation. It just kind of helps me just to understand who my colleagues are on this platform, so I can tailor my conversations accordingly. Thank you. Right, so our aim today, and hopefully, Rachel, I got this right, is, I was absolutely thrilled when I had this conversation with Rachel, and I thought, wow, we have obviously a religious group that got a lot of sessions scheduled to promoting health and well-being. I thought, fantastic, this is really great. I usually do my sessions in academia, like a university, and also I do them locally in NHS organizations, and sometimes one-to-one with my colleagues, and also in my social network. So it's nice to kind of be on this platform because this is different. This is the first time I've done it for a group like yourself. So our aim, really, what I'm aiming to do is to kind of delve into a bit more about how we could have, or how we could develop a positive inner self where we can thrive and self-actualize and reach your higher self. Okay, so the Greek philosophers call it eudaimonia. And when I started reading into this, I thought, oh my God, this is hundreds and hundreds of years old. And actually, these philosophers knew what they were talking about. They knew how us human beings were meant to live in this environment and try to navigate the environment. And it's actually got a lot of tools and techniques that they knew hundreds and hundreds of years ago, that if you follow that, I'm also a religious person. And actually, when I looked into what my religious studies show me, and also what the philosophers were talking about, there was a lot of things that aligned, and which made me and empowered me to kind of delve in a bit more as well. So hopefully what we're going to share today will help through your journey navigating this world that we live in. So how best can we understand our inner self? That's always the question I ask myself every day, because if you can agree that one day is never the same, there's always something around the corner that's going to throw you off. And you're going to think, oh my God, how am I going to navigate around that? But what I learned is by understanding how your brain works, you hopefully will be able to navigate. It's not going to take away, you're not going to be new, kind of the challenges that are going to come in your life, but you'll be able to hopefully have some understanding of your emotions, understanding of what's happening, and be able to find a path, a positive path to navigate around that. They always say that if you haven't felt pain, you haven't felt a challenge, you haven't lived. So what we know is in life, there's always going to be a challenge. There's always going to be pain. And probably, a lot of challenges that are going to question your being. But if you know how your brain works, hopefully you can navigate that challenge. The key to remember, and if there's anything that you're going to take away from this session, is that the brain is a powerful organ in the body, okay? And what I learned is that it has two circuitry, which is a threat circuitry and one which is a reward circuitry. But the good thing about it is that they're both in the same region. So you can easily switch from a threat circuitry to a reward circuitry. And that's what I try and do every day. And that's what I encourage you to do every day. Because once you feel that threat, that's normal. Embrace it. Give it a hug. Give it a cuddle, because that's a response. But what we want to do is move from that threat circuitry to the reward circuitry, because actually in life there's a lot of rewards, things that we are grateful for. But unfortunately, we are geared to look for just a threat. Okay. I'll share with you one of the model of change that I use in professional well-being. It is produced by World Bank. It talked a lot around change in healthcare, but like I said, this is transferable to your day-to-day. I certainly have used this tool in my day-to-day, and I would want you to kind of think about this. When I say it about threat and embracing it and cuddling it, that's absolutely fine. I don't know if you can see my mouse here. The World Bank triangle encourages people to acknowledge the anxiety, the stress that's happening and in that situation, and then move on quite quickly to identifying the learning and the development needs based on that situation that's causing you anxiety, and move over to creating a solution. Yeah. So use your energy, creating energy and solution focus, rather than kind of hanging around in the anxiety, feeling sorry for ourselves and going, oh my God, life is so hard on me. It always happens to me. But actually thinking, what happened here? In healthcare, we talk about restorative, about reflection, identifying what went wrong, what happened, what was my play in it, and could I do things differently next time? And then looking at a solution focus rather than hanging around in the anxiety state. So World Bank is another easy triangle. I like it because it's not so complicated, and hopefully you can remember just the triangle. Anxiety, embrace it, give it a cuddle, but let's move on quite quickly to identifying what needs to happen and creating a solution quite quickly. I don't want to sound like I'm preaching about all the scientific elements, but actually, once you understand how the brain works, you could start to think about how that aligns to your day-to-day thinking, how that aligns to your day-to-day behaviors. Because once you start knowing that, knowing about your neuroscience, your chemicals, your neurons, how things fire up in your brain and the rest of your body, you start to kind of change the way you think and behave, hopefully. So like I said earlier on, you have a threat secretary and you've got a reward secretary. You know, surprisingly, all these neurons that are geared towards threat are located in the same brain region as the pleasure or the reward. So we can actually switch lanes. And I usually use the analogy of driving on a motorway. So if you are in the third lane, which is the fastest lane, close to the central reservation, that's your fast lane, that's your threat, okay? And you've got your soothing, lane, which is the middle one. And you can also have your pleasure lane, which is the first one. So you can easily move from that threat. There's a lot of pathways that you can have. You don't necessarily need to kind of focus a lot on the threat. But unfortunately, guess what? The threat dominates our brain more. And this is primitive because we were born, we were born like that. This is years of evolution. We were hunting and gathering. We were trying to fight ourselves, fight to survive. Be it whatever stage in our lives, you're always trying to fight to survive. Look at what happened with COVID-19. That was unexpected and we were trying to fight to survive. So unfortunately, our brain is geared to look for threat all the time. But we don't have dinosaurs walking around the streets and in Birmingham, because I'm in Birmingham. You have other rewards that are around you, other pleasures that are around you. And what we're trying to say, and what I'm trying to say is, let's move away from the threat. Acknowledge that, you know what? The reason why my brain looks around for threat all the time is because primitively, that's how genetically now that's how I function. But I'm going to refuse to be in that third lane and I'm going to walk through and switch lanes and be in the reward or the pleasure secretary. Okay. So your rewards could be anything. So I'm just going to stop here and I'm just going to ask all of you, okay, see 28 participants here. And if you tell me, either just unmute yourself or put it in the chat. And Rachel, if you can just help me kind of read what people are typing in there. Could you just tell me what your rewards are, or what are your pleasures or things that are happening in your life that you can say, look, this is a reward in my life. Please feel free to unmute yourself.
Okay, Lauren, I want to ask this question. Can I?
Yes, yeah, please.
Yeah, looking at the screen and with what you just said and then what is on the screen, danger is all around us and we come together to fight danger. So is it like, are you saying that we should have that mindset that whatever we do, there is danger? And I'm just thinking that if we have that mindset, isn't that stressful? And isn't that a defeatist mindset? Can you help me on that, please?
Yeah, that's a very good question. Okay. And the reason why I've got that up there is because what your brain tells you is there's danger around us. Okay, because primitively you're geared up to look for and scout out for danger. Okay. But like I mentioned earlier on, what we have to think about is that there is pleasure, there is rewards, there is actually other positive things that are happening in our lives. Okay. So one of which is that us as human beings, we come together and we fight for danger. So it could be your spouse, it could be your child, it could be your neighbor, it could be your, a fellow colleague at work, or someone you go in, to church with, or someone you do some hobbies or activities. There is always someone around to support you in every way you can do. So yes, there is danger around us, but actually what I'm trying to get to is we actually come together to fight danger. We actually can, if you're train your mind to think, actually, there is rewards, there is pleasure, there is more positive things than the danger. You will probably start to think, actually, I shouldn't be scared. I shouldn't worry, because what we know as human beings do, and it was really, prevalent during the COVID-19, is we will come together and we can fight the danger. So that's where I was, where that statement is coming from. Has that answered your question?
Yeah. Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Okay. Have we got any other questions or any comments? Have we thought about what other rewards we have in our lives or pleasures that we have in our lives? Are we struggling to think about some of the rewards we have?
I think, can I say one pleasure that it came to mind? Monday to Fridays are usually very stressful for me, but I know that on Saturday, that is off the table, and that feeling of not having to think about work at all on a Saturday, it's more like a reward for me. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. So can I just explore that a little bit? So what's happening on a Saturday that gives you that pleasure? There must be, obviously there's a bit of rest maybe from the, mental kind of energy you're using during the week. What else have you got that weekend?
Yeah, there's a bit of rest. There is, I know that I'll go to church, there'll be singing, something which I can sing my heart out, and I don't actually have to think that I have to meet a deadline. There's no deadlines on Saturdays for me. So it's, that also helps. Okay,
brilliant. That's good. So you're making conscious, you've got that conscious awareness that I've got Monday to Friday doing my work, which is quite mentally challenging. In a way, probably very good, because it's pushing your boundaries, I suspect. We all probably wouldn't want to be pushed too hard, but again, that could be a topic on its own when we talk about well-being in a workplace, because that's a challenge on its own. But you are aware that there's certain things that you use to support your well-being. Yeah, am I right? Have I summarized that very well for you?
Yes. Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Right. Just going back to, sorry, have I missed out anything in the chat box, Rachel?
No, you haven't.
All right. So just moving on from that, what I tend to try and remind people is that there are, as we are aware that primitively or genetically, we are looking and scouting for danger all the time. It is really important that you start to think about some of the rewards that you might have. I mean, it could be, I don't know, a Birkin handbag. I don't know if that's a reward. I would like to have one of those one of these years, but I don't know. Some people's rewards are, good health, a gift of a child, graduation. They've put on a lot of work through their, exams and so forth. Buying their first home. It could be buying that luxurious car, whatever your reward is. But obviously, that reward has to have a meaningful value to you. And whatever the drive that drives you needs to have that foundation of core value that, hopefully will enable you to grow as a person, and not just from a selfish point of view. But I'll touch on that in a bit as well. Okay, so you thought you're probably going to get away from doing some more activities, but I've got a bit more here. Could you share with me, if you'd like to, what are your stresses every day? So earlier on, my colleague on the platform mentioned work could be stressful. Could you all just do the Slido again? If you can't, again, you can use the chat box, just to try and understand what it is that, could potentially stress you, or that has stressed you, if you're willing to share. And I'm just going to go back onto the Slido again. Okay. What are your stresses? Again, you can hover over that QR code there or go onto slido.com and put in that number there. You don't need to put the hash, you just put 3234624. So work. I can see we've got 26 participants and I've only got 2. Okay, running late to an event, children sometimes. Financial difficulties, yeah. And particularly in this climate at the moment, we're all trying by all means to kind of just survive. And that's not easy. Okay. Rachel, is there anything in the charts?
Yes, we've got dealing with difficult patients and family.
Okay. So that's at work. So difficult dealing with patients at work, and is the dealing with family, is the patient's family or family at home?
Yeah, it looks more like patient's family.
Okay. All right. Okay. So I can see here that quite a lot is around, you've got a bit of work here, financial difficulties, clients are related to work. Yes, you could have had some bereavement, and that's very challenging. Okay. Yeah, health and the unknown. Okay. So the unknown, hopefully with this lecture, with this session, I'm hoping that you can probably start to think differently, because worrying about the unknown can be quite an unhealthy state of mind, because we have no control over what's going to happen in the future. You can only control what's happening now. So what we'd like to do is try and switch, kind of that mindset to a mindset that helps you have that mindfulness experience of just immersing yourself in the now rather than what's happening in the future. I know it's easier said than done when you've got family, when you've got a career and financial difficulties. But when you talk about the war-brain triangle, I think what we want is to identify the solutions that can help you have that peace of mind. Otherwise, fear of the unknown is going to take over your life, and you continue, to kind of go through that road that's going to stress you always. Thank you very much for sharing that. Okay, just going to try and get back to that slide. Okay. So what could we do then to try and get over some of these stresses? Okay. Remember what I said at the beginning. This is about understanding how your brain works. And some of you are healthcare practitioners already at different levels, so you will know a lot of this, but I try and kind of revisit this again. And every time I'm talking about this, I'm reminding myself as well how important it is to understand how your brain works, in particular when there's threat. So in neuroscience, we've got the neurochemicals called cortisol and adrenaline. Okay. So when you're feeling stressed, or you're thinking about the unknown, or you've got financial difficulties, or when you've got a bereavement, remember on the Warburg triangle that I showed you earlier, there is anxiety, there's stress. Absolutely embrace that stress. Cuddle it, okay, and say, I'm feeling stressed. That is the first part of you acknowledging that there is a stressor. Now it's understanding about finding the developmental needs. So if it's bereavement, it's probably looking at some support through that bereavement, okay, whether it's a professional or as a community or as a family. And if it's about financial difficulties, it's now starting to think about what is the issues, is the income low compared to the expenditure? Could we start looking at lowering our expenditure and so forth? Could I look at getting that qualification so I can gain that, ideal job that's going to give me additional income? So what we're saying is the stress is not going to go away. The threats are not going to go away. And like I was talking to a colleague on the platform earlier on, who asked me the question about danger is all around us, what we're saying is, actually, we know that. But I'm not going to spend my time thinking about the danger. I'm going to think about the reward. I'm going to think about the opportunities that are around us, and then try and move forward from the state of threat to a reward or a pleasure. One of the things that I learned, because I've been stressed, I've had terrible stressful situations, but until I started doing this work probably about 8 or 9 years ago now, I've started learning how to manage the stress, okay? And when you talk about cortisol, cortisol is activated by a stressful situation. It's designed to keep you alive, yeah? It's sort of basically artificially numbing you to try and kind of, you're using extra glucose in your body, you're trying to kind of, fight or, flight that situation that you're in. Similarly, adrenaline is the same, activated, fight or flight. So it's just basically trying to get you over that situation. But what we know is overexposure can be damaging to your health. And there is a lot of research in neuroscience now that are saying we are actually altering the DNA of the human body because we're overexposed to cortisol and adrenaline. And there is studies that tell us that you can actually cause neuron atrophy. So the little little neurons in your brain that fire up every time when you're either stressed or chemical or you're eating, all the neurons that kind of fire up to get your body working the best it's supposed to, they will start to die because you're overexposed to cortisol and adrenaline. So my title of my session was The Inner Self. What we want to do is learn what your body's doing when you're in a stressful situation. Do you want your neurons to die? No, you don't want early onset dementia or starting to have any of the neurological conditions, because that's what's going to happen if you're overexposed to cortisol. Now, I don't want to frighten you, I don't want to scare you, but it's worth thinking about, because there are actually really easy techniques that you can use every day that can try and help you in your day-to-day. Okay. Going back to that conversation I had earlier on, what I always tell myself, okay, whenever there's a stressful situation is, I am not alone. Humans, we're very good. We're social animals. And, we've survived for years. We work together, okay? In saying that, you need to be around the right environment, the right people that are going to encourage you and push you or create a positive environment. If you're in a negative environment, your cortisol level and your adrenaline levels will continue to increase. So the pivotal there is the good environment, okay? So again, it's not just about what's inside in your body, it's around what your environment and the people around you are also doing, because then it helps you have that balance. One thing I learned as well, which I thought was quite interesting, was, as human beings, we are animal kingdom, but we're not actually superior. So anthropologist Weber King said that, we are good at cooperating with each other, especially look at COVID, look at when challenges happen. But our abilities are not superior, okay? Because in the animal world, there is something about the human brain, okay, and the humans, what we do to each other or what we do, and again, I'm not going to go too much into it, but there is things like ego that we explore when I'm doing one-to-one sessions or group sessions, and there is things like power, ego, and so forth that actually create environments that are not conducive for our inner self. So like when I say to you, please find an environment that's conducive to your inner peace. It's really important. Sometimes you can't select them because it's a workplace, okay? Sometimes it's because it's a family member and you can't do anything about it, but it's about how you navigate through that and how you can, kind of highlight some of the challenges and find solutions to it, okay? But one thing that we're really good at is that we are unique because we come together, and that's something that we should celebrate. Okay. Good things. Remember earlier on, I mentioned that in the brain, you've got a threat circuitry and you've got a reward circuitry, and the reward is right next to the threat. So you can switch lanes, okay? And you can choose to select your happy chemicals. And these are the happy chemicals that we find in our bodies. So dopamine, serotonin, oxytocin, and endorphins. So I'm going to stop talking because I'm going to ask you if someone can tell me what dopamine does. And please feel free to unmute yourself. What does dopamine do in your body? Or you can type it into the chat as well. Anyone? Okay, any of this, maybe serotonin, oxytocin, or endorphins. What do they do to our body? The good. Right, let's see then what it says here. Okay, so endorphins are released. Okay, so it's a neurochemical released to mask physical pain, and it's also called the runner's high. So when you're exercising and so forth, you release this endorphin. Okay, it's really good at giving you that kind of that energy, that sense of, you know, achievement. Okay. It's also a happiness booster when you exercise. You can also get it from eating dark chocolate or laughing. I didn't know that until I started doing this work. So dopamine. Okay, so that's my son when he was he plays competitive basketball, and they won the under 21 championships in the West Midlands. And it's released, you know, when you're achieve a goal. So dopamine is really good. When you achieve your goal, you release a whole burst of it. Brilliant, good stuff. And then serotonin is regarded as a selfless neurochemical, activated when we feel valued and feeling pride. So when you're in that environment, when someone appreciates you and feel, you know, kind of encourages you, you feel like actually you're part of something, you release serotonin. You don't have to release cortisol or adrenaline. So again, do you remember I said the pivotal is a good environment? Okay. Right, oxytocin. So oxytocin released usually, that's me with my sister-in-law, okay, on a baby shower. So most mothers release oxytocin, okay. It's activated when we're feeling a friendship, a sense of trust, physical touch. When you've got that trust and relationship, you release oxytocin, okay. So one might say, actually, what's the boohoo? What does that matter? Remember what I said earlier on? Eudaimonia, when you want to develop that positive inner self, where you want to thrive, self-actualize, and reach your higher self, you need to be releasing those happy chemicals. You literally need to have adrenaline and cortisol under the sole of your feet. You need to be stamping on it, going, do you know what? I acknowledge you're here. I know you're a chemical that's required in my body when I'm feeling threatened or stressed, but actually, I'm not going to let you hang around. I'm going to try and, you know, have oxytocin and serotonin instead, okay? Because those are chemicals, or the neurochemicals, that are really good and nurturing and empowering and giving you that sense of trust that you can then have those innovative ideas, okay? So one thing that we tend to do is when we're stressed, you know, our mind is clouded, okay? In neuroscience, they talk about, you know, the cloudiness of the frontal cortex, you know, that bit here that we keep going when you're stressed or something is going, you start hitting your head and going, oh my God, what's happening? The frontal cortex is here at the front end, and you've got, once you're stressed and cortisol and adrenaline comes in, it gives you like a foggy feeling and you can't think straight. You can't be innovative. You can't think about any, reward or any pleasures. It's all, oh, hard. This is not happening to me. And this, you're fighting and or either you're going to fight. But what we want to do is take a step away from the situation, give yourself time to breathe, try and allow oxygen to your brain, okay? Remove yourself from the environment if you have to. Just say to that person, give me 5 minutes, okay? And deep breath in. I know it sounds like a cliche, but deep breath in, allow oxygen in your brain. And then think about that wall brain triangle that says identify development needs and find a solution, okay? Do not act when you've got adrenaline and cortisol. We've heard of so many reported cases where people have done things when they're high on adrenaline and cortisol and they don't remember what happened. Okay, so what we're saying is step away from that and allow your inner self to find peace before you respond to a situation. Okay, I'm going to stop here and just check. Are we all right? Because I can't see everybody.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah, brilliant. So I'm going to stop talking because I could talk for England. All right. I'm going to let you watch a little clip just to kind of reinforce what I've just talked about. Okay. And it's not one I made earlier. Okay. I would like to take the credit for it, but it's definitely not mine. So let's have a look and see if we can play this video. Okay. Can you still see my screen?
Yes, we can.
Brilliant, thank you. Just gonna move myself over a bit. Okay, and let's go. Let me know if the audio is working.
Audio, it's not working, Lauren.
Audio is not working.
Wow, lovely.
So let me.
Audio is working now.
What do you mean?
It's working.
What do you mean?
Okay.
No, it's not working.
It's not working. Okay.
Yeah.
So I need to enable audio when I'm sharing, isn't it? Share
Yes.
sound. That's it. Okay, share. Let's try again.
Share with you.
Right. Let's start again. How about now?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Brilliant.
When you have a goal worth achieving, you will need to achieve breakthroughs. Breakthroughs that take you outside of your comfort zone. Let me share with you how your neurochemicals are empowering you and 4 reasons that this is important for you and your success. Meet your happy chemicals. Now, before we start this exercise, I think that I should share a little about your happy chemicals in your brain. When you understand the role of these 5 neurochemicals, you'll understand why you have to get out of your comfort zone to experience happiness. You see, everyone says that they want happiness, but happiness is not a destination. It's an experience you feel along the journey as you make significant progress towards a goal that is meaningful for you. Neuroscience research has shown us that our happy chemicals, particularly dopamine, are more abundant as we move towards the achievement of our goal. Once we've achieved our goal, our happy chemical production reduces. Every step towards your goal, one that is meaningful for you, triggers more dopamine. The good feelings distract you from any bad feelings you may have had. But the day will come when the habit of moving towards that particular goal disappoints. The same old reward may fail to mask negative feelings and self-defeating talk, meaning you seek a bigger reward to trigger more dopamine. Hence, you have to stretch yourself continuously, and as you grow out of your comfort zone, stretch it again. The second reason you need to move beyond your comfort zone is to grow as a person. I remember when I was something of a fitness freak, going to the gym, running, playing rugby, skiing, and so on. In order to develop my fitness and build muscles, I had to work out, and I had to work out a lot. Every time stretching myself a little more, running just a little further or faster, lifting a little more weight or more repetitions, swimming more laps. Nowadays, if I don't get a few decent swims in every week, I'll still grow, just not in the way I would want. Physical exercise triggers endorphin production, another happy chemical in the brain, though this one is one that relieves pain. Thus, exercising makes you feel good. But quickly, the same amount of exercise doesn't trigger enough endorphins, so you exercise more, which creates more pain, or you do something tougher to get the same feel-good feeling. The same is true if you want to build character, personality, improve skills, strengthen relationships. People who stretch themselves deliberately and regularly grow more. Only when you develop new skills, behaviours or thinking, does your brain create new neural pathways. To grow as a person, you'll need to develop these new connections and strengthen them. When you take on a new intellectual challenge that is painful for you, you will get a similar, though usually smaller, endorphin rush. The more you push, the more you trigger. Thirdly, you can never conquer fear if you don't face it. Moving out of your comfort zone is fearful. The anticipation of embarking on a plan to achieve a goal that stretches you triggers the fearful chemicals in the brain. Your amygdala, the emotional centre of your brain, sends out a red alert to all the brain. Your hypothalamus and pituitary gland inform your adrenal glands to produce cortisol. Cortisol causes your heart to race, your palms to sweat, breathing to become shallow, and your digestive tract to shut down. That butterflies in the stomach feeling, as your body is prepared to respond to the threat. You'll freeze, or run away, or stay to fight. The classic and most typical response when you fear is about actioning on your goals is procrastination, the freeze response to fear. Too much cortisol messes with your memories in your hippocampus, fragmenting memory and often associating something relatively benign with something genuinely fearful. Producing dopamine or endorphins enable you to ignore or cope with the bad feelings generated by cortisol and adrenaline. If you don't stretch yourself, stay in your comfort zone, well, you'll not have to face that fear, will you? Until one day, that is, when some
You're muted,
Right. Okay, can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Yes, okay, brilliant. I'm going to stop that recording and I can share that with you because I'm conscious of time now. I'm sure you've got plenty to do in your Sunday evening. So just going back then to the lecture, what's important really from there, hopefully it summarizes a bit about what we've just been talking about around, you know, your happy chemicals and what you should try and do. Okay. So just to kind of run through the last bit of slides, what's really important for you as a person and for your inner self, just think about why it matters for you to have, you know, less of those cortisol and adrenaline and have more of the endorphins, serotonin, oxytocin and dopamine. Okay. Because what we know is that if you live in fear, like I was speaking to a colleague earlier on, is that you're forced to spend your time and your energy protecting yourself. And we don't want that. And some people think actually it's trendy or it's cool, it's nice to be stressed. Actually, it's not, because what we've found with neuroscience is that, you know, you will have your neurons will die out. And also you're just absolutely exhausted because you're using a lot of your sugar reservoirs to push forward. So again, I'm going to bring back that Warbeck triangle. I find it really easy. Like I said earlier on, if you're feeling anxious at all, don't be alarmed. That's a normal body response. But what we're saying is embrace it, give it a cuddle and say, I know you're here right now, but I'm going to identify some learning and development needs, and I'm going to try and find a creative solution that will take me away from this anxious state. So it could be taking yourself out of the environment. It could be that you're creating more opportunity, you're attending more lectures, you're, you know, accessing therapy or anything, because what we don't want to do is like, oh, you know, people always say, I'm feeling stressed, as if it's something, you know, to be proud of. It's actually not, because the longevity of your life, it will have detrimental effect on your health. Okay, so how we can increase our surplus chemicals is to think about how we can be empathetic in every day of our lives, have regular exercise, reduce stress, giving to others. Okay, I'm going to skip that one. And what I just wanted you to think about, taking home message here is to think about creating that inner self, that environment within yourself that's going to create those positive energy, that positive feel. You're going to have your threat chemicals underneath your foot, stepping them down, going, I don't want you here. I know you're there. Yeah, cortisol, adrenaline. You're there, but I'm not going to let you rule my life. I want the selfless chemicals, which are your serotonin and oxytocin. So can I just clarify as well? You do have the happy chemicals, which are endorphins and dopamine, and serotonin and oxytocin, but you can split those two into two categories. Okay, so there are selfish chemicals. There are also happy chemicals. So happy chemicals such as endorphins and dopamine, they're good, but actually, like that little clip told you, if you've got endorphin, which is, released during sort of like exercise and so forth, usually that's towards yourself, okay? That's about you rather than another person. It's similar to dopamine when you've got that achievement. That's a selfish thing in a way, not saying you're selfish, but it's up geared towards you. Whereas selfless chemicals like serotonin and oxytocin are usually geared to other people and what's happening around you, the community or your colleagues or your family. So it's not just what's within you. So it's really good to kind of have them in full gear as well. So thank you very much for listening and for your participation. I was going to put that slide, or I don't know if I've got 5 minutes, Rachel, just to say what people have learned, because I'm hoping that they've picked up something. Like I say, this is a huge topic on well-being. I've just chosen the neurochemicals because I wanted you to introduce you to the brain and how it works when we're stressed. So what do you think, Rachel?
Can we use about 3 minutes for that?
Okay, so I'm just going to go back and just put that slide out there, and just wanted to get to know from everybody who's on the platform what you've learned from this session. So again, you can put it in the chat, or you can go on to Slido, hover over the QR code, or go onto slido.com and put that number in. Right, so I'm just going to change this to have you learned from this session? So far I've got no one participating. I've got 32 people on the platform. Are we struggling to get on? Or yeah, 4 people. Hooray! Embrace your anxiety. Brilliant. Oh, someone's lent that number. Good stuff. Okay. Have we got anything in the chat, Rach?
I did write that I have learned that I can decide how I want to feel at any particular point in time.
Brilliant. Okay.
There's another one in the chat that says, I have learned that we work together to face adversity.
Okay, brilliant. I've got someone else who's put in here positive mindsets, yeah, to face positive environment. Yeah. I do cover another session where we talk about, inner peace and mindfulness when we cut out the noise. So I'm sure Rachel will be doing a part 2 at some point in the future.
Yeah.
It is a lot to take in. That's why I thought when I was doing this, I was thinking, what's the best way of introducing the topic? But I'm hoping that, the lecture on neurochemicals is help you to think about, yeah. So stay off negativity. Great. Yeah. Embrace your anxiety. Anything else in the chat, Rach?
I'll have a quick look. Happy hormones. Someone's learned their happy hormones. Yeah.
Brilliant. And you can research a bit more about this, you know, changing mindset and going through it from, you know, inner peace or learning about your inner self is a journey. So you can do a lot of research. We're lucky that we've got Professor Google nowadays, and there's a lot that you can learn, but hopefully I've introduced the topic and you've picked something that you're going to take home and share with your family and friends. Right, we'll stop here. Thank you very much, Rachel.
Okay, right. So a very big thank you to Lorraine for getting time for us out of the very busy schedule. Honestly, we have learned a lot. I personally have taken a few notes and I'm going to try and practice them along whilst we get on. And the whole team, all our visiting friends, I would like to say a big thank you for your participation. It's been really lovely session with you, Lorraine, and we are hoping together with the church to organize a part 2. I know you've got a lot of knowledge to share, so hopefully we will get a part 2. Thank you very much for coming, Lorraine. I do appreciate it with the entire team as well. Thank you.
You're most welcome. And thank you very much for having me. Okay. And thank you, everybody, for listening, and all the best. And let's keep a positive inner self.
Okay, okay. So we'll
care.
get back to all questions can be channeled to me, and then I'll link that to Lorraine and she'll be able to help. So at this point, we'll say the Bible studies continues. Everyone interested can stay and listen. Thank you.
Thank you.